Hey everyone, of course, welcome to the next edition of Forum Bites. In this episode, we're going to start a new platform called One-on-One. Now, as you know, we've been starting to expand our reach both on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and obviously, as you know, YouTube, to try and make sure we can bring to you as much information about leading leaders as possible to try and make your jobs a little bit easier. I'm extremely lucky. I get to go around this planet and meet a lot of EOers, a lot of different business leaders. And we thought, why not, as well as give you best practice, allow me to pick their brain, to try and get some lessons from them that I can share with you. And that's where the idea of one-on-one came from. It's where I get to sit down with that business leader and ask him a simple question about leadership, something which I believe will be able to help you in your journey in leading other leaders. Now, in this very first episode, we talked to Mark Silva, the Managing Director of Concept Marketing. He's a friend of mine. He's been on my EO forum. He's been a regional director. He was the president of a Rockstar chapter, and he's done a lot of things with both EO and business. But the one reason why I wanted to interview Mark is he's also a facilitator. And I've watched him do it with a group of people, either people he knows or people he doesn't. They're usually business leaders within a business or separate businesses. And he has the ability to bring people together really quickly. You know that being able to knit people together where, you haven't met them before, you might be a seed moderator or you might be leading a brand new group. What do you do? What is the trick to bringing everyone onto the same page as fast as possible? Because then you can get on with the job of actually trying to set goals and move forward. So in this episode, I ask him that question. So hopefully you enjoy the very first one-on-one. Tell me, now you obviously have led many different groups, both in business like here as well as volunteer groups, charity groups, and you've also facilitated different areas and different forums to help them find their own path. Now, if there's one lesson that you can share with these guys and girls about to try and make that journey easier, to try and show people that going down the path you're putting forward is the right one, what would it be?
Oh, there's many, but if I had to pick one, I think the important thing that I try to do with any group of whatever size is to earn their trust. If I don't have their trust, there's not an honesty of conversation that enters the room.
Is it trust in you, trust in the process, trust in themselves, or?
Probably all three, and then the fourth one would be the environment that they're working within. So unless there's trust within the environment and it's a safe space to voice their own opinion or thinking or thought process, everyone has ideas, everyone has opinions. We just need to allow a medium for them to actually voice their opinion.
Where do you start? Do you start with showing the trust? Because obviously you're there facilitating a group of people. You've probably only met one of them before, like a lot of the seed moderators do. Where do you start? Do you start with them? Do you start with a group? Or do you start with you?
So, perfect. Myself.
Okay.
What I need to do is build their trust by actually showing vulnerability in myself. Just by the virtue that I'm standing in front of the room, people give me instant credibility. But that credibility is judged from the very first moment that I walk in the door. So what I need to do is initially demonstrate vulnerability on my side so I can extract similar vulnerabilities from them.
That must be pretty daunting. I mean, standing in front of a group of people that you don't know and being vulnerable in front of them to get their trust. Is there any, do you have a toolkit or a story, or what do you normally do?
So yes, so it is a story that I will demonstrate a part of my life where I felt very insecure, very vulnerable, and I share that with the team. So what I wish to do with them is also to understand in their own world, it's okay to feel insecure. It's okay to feel vulnerable.
It's something which is a difficult thing from the point of view of an individual. So if you have the confidence, therefore, to be vulnerable in front of other people and to start building the trust, what would you do next to get, the people who are the resistors? The ones who are sitting in the room. I'm sure you've had them. Sitting in the room, usually with their arms folded, leaning backwards. What do you do to try and get them involved with the group as quickly as you can? Because obviously when you're facilitating, you're only with them for a certain amount of time.
So this is a technique I learned, and it's really important to learn this technique and actually to implement it. You actually want to hear from every single person in that room. And often what happens when you do facilitate a meeting, you have those people who are the loudest that often direct or will challenge the direction of the meeting. Now, the loudest doesn't obviously or normally be correct. So what I do is I break it down. And what I do is when I do pose a question to the group, I ask everyone to write down what their thoughts are, their top 2-3 things around the subject at hand that we're talking about. I give them time and space to actually write down their thinking. Yeah. And then what I do is I'll pick around the room. I now know everyone's got an answer. It's not just the first person with their hand up. So what I can do is I can pick on the person who've got their arms folded, but I may not pick on them straight away. What I generally do is to facilitate a good meeting is I'll find someone in the audience that I think is going to have a good answer.
So in other words, show them, in other words, what the benefit of the process is before you then put them on the spot.
But it also sets a tone and a standard. And very quickly, I'll gauge within the room someone who will lead the level of discussion at a higher level. That will be my go-to person, that when I need something and it's going off track, I'll go to my go-to person within the room that I've quickly ascertained that will help me gravitate it back on track, and I'll go to that person.
And that's a good point. So getting people involved, in other words, giving them an actual activity where, well, they have to be involved because you're going to call on them, but also having that anchor just in case it gets off track to actually hold them on the same process. Because I know managing volunteers sometimes, and also managing people, that the process can get totally off skew based on someone's either question or not understanding the process, which I think is a great idea of actually getting into the person who's got first.
I really want to hear everyone's voice. So I do this one exercise. Then what I want to do is identify leaders within that group. So let's say it's a large group of 30. I'll play the exercise out where everyone as individuals needs to write down their information. I then will go and maybe break them into, for instance, down the track, I'll break them into groups of 5 or 6. So now I have 6 groups of 5.
Yep.
Then what I say is come up with, we all put 3 ideas down on the table, pick your top 3. And there'll be crossover, but what they do is they work in a team to identify their top 3. What it allows me to do is facilitate very quickly. So what I can get through in a 4-hour session will be what some other people will take maybe 2 days to achieve. But what I'm also doing is I'm creating a team dynamic. And I get people outside their comfort zones. They stand up. It's not the people next to them. They stand up and have to find a new group of 3 or 4 people that they need to bond with.
So what you're saying is the best way to drive the trust within the group very quickly is obviously show vulnerability, yourself first, and then move through. Then have some events or plans within the actual group to drive the group, not only to be together, but also to actually be part of the process. It's not about what do you want to do, it's about how you want them to feel and act within whatever you're trying to facilitate.
And I think you're probably spot on.
Okay.
All of these facilitation days or strategy days that you actually do, it's more about the feeling and the motivation to achieve an outcome than the actual tactile strategies that you put down on paper. Because we've all had the great ideas, but unless you've brought in the enthusiasm and the motivation from that team that are part of it, it doesn't eventuate to fulfillment of the idea or strategy.
So you're actually the physical embodiment of what you're trying to drive, both verbally, physically driven. Perfect. Hopefully that has helped some of you be able to work through some of the groups that you're now managing. Of course, as I said, this is only the first one-on-one. We are going to be talking to as many people as we can. Now, obviously, if you do want some more information about Mark or from Mark, I'll leave his details directly below. We'll be going through, as I said, more of these one-on-ones going forward. But as always, if anyone's got any questions whatsoever, just leave them in the comment section below. If you haven't subscribed already, just go ahead and hit that subscribe. It'll be right there this time. And as always, I'll see you in the next video.